his foot soldiers, really. Yeah.
So if he's going to do that, he better hope he never gets a foot wrong, because when he does,
they will come for his blood. All right. Okay. And, you know, for me, I think what's sad about this whole thing is return to work formula is only on paper. There's still such bad blood with the teachers and the government. Fine, I didn't expect it to, you know, end just, you know, one day, but it's just, it's like nothing's been resolved. These guys are back to work. Here's my problem.
When I look at when the president speaks, when I look at when he reaches out to Kenyans, if there's one thing he always refers to is reconciliation. He always talks about the unity of Kenyans. He always talks about winning the hearts of Kenyans so that we can concentrate on developing this country. Well, he needs to understand these teachers are Kenyan. You cannot preach this message of reconciliation and whip people into order and hope to win a negotiation when it comes to can we trust you. He needs to understand he's still in the place as president where he's trying to win trust. He's trying to win confidence because the country has problems. We don't have the kind of money we need. We don't have the kind of power we need to do certain things. The only way he'll be able to go forward, he has to embrace the principle and the art of negotiation, not the art of whipping people back into work. There'll be a problem with that. And he needs to understand, if you step out there and give messages of peace and reconciliation every time you're invited somewhere, and then on Monday you send your troops out with baseball bats and whips.
There's a bigger picture to this.
It begins to run thin. It begins to run thin after a while, and we then stop to listen to his message. We say, you know what? We don't trust this guy. Why he's saying that now, and give it 24 hours. Wait till his cabinet secretary on whatever issue speaks. He was going to lose that trust he has worked so hard to develop, and it'll be a problem getting it back. Especially if, by some magic wand, court gets its acts together. Because right now they're not the problem, I can assure you. They're still a shambles. So he better pray that he has this lead time to sort his house out before those other guys get their act together.
And there was even that video that was released apparently of you know, a meeting between Mudzonzili and Mike Sonko. Did that affect the negotiations in any way? It didn't seem to show any impropriety. I mean, it was a discussion between the two. But, you know, the purpose of leaking that video...
It was all crazy. Mike Sonko should stop doing those kind of things. He had better stop those shenanigans and drama where you invite a friend and then you start recording them.
That's right.
And then that should not happen, because then people will never trust you, because nobody will want to sit down with you even anywhere, because they will be watching over to see whether they are being recorded or not. And for sure, the Mudzonzili says this is a friend of him who they've known each other for a long time, and they were just chatting. Anyway, there was absolutely, Mike Sonko is the senator of Nairobi. There's absolutely nothing wrong with even with the teacher official.
Even from the video, there seemed to be no impropriety.
Absolutely.
There was no mischief. It was just, so what are we going to do, you know, if this contempt case goes through? It'll be a little difficult for us to raise the money, but did we see anything? But you know, the whole idea of how this whole thing
the fact that it happened should then serve as notice. Really, it should serve as notice to anybody who thinks that they can have dealings with one Mike Sonko, that is the result. That is a proof of who you're working with. This is a chap who's looking for relevance, all right? You notice he no longer enjoys the level of prominence he had back then, because the campaigns are over and people are going to work. And he's not one of those guys who seems to be having the ear and the goodwill of the president. And he's looking for alternative ways to remain relevant. So if you're going to be the fool who actually thinks hanging out with him will get you any brownie points, it's at your own peril. So now you know who you're dealing with. He has a personal campaign for himself. He has his own needs which are not being met. Now, if you want to be the fool who will help him actualize those needs, don't come complaining to us when people start cracking whips later.
First of all, we must understand, Mike Sonko is the senator of Nairobi, and I hope the sooner he realizes that, the better, because he's way above. He's supposed to be a leader who the entire city looks up upon.
The entire county.
Exactly. That's what I was saying. Even in times of crises like this, there's absolutely nothing wrong with engaging him, or even Skidero as the governor. Those are leaders who are in their own right, they're supposed to even to be sorting out matters. If by talking to them, you can sort out an issue, the better. But the manner in which that it turns out is what is is not the best
I mean,
way.
I think the fact that it was recorded and it looked like it was recorded on a cell phone and then that was leaked. I mean, to what end?
That doesn't make sense.
And like you say, they're good friends.
Why
why would you want to record a conversation, you know, between friends?
And then leak it out to what purpose was it?
But it didn't really seem to sway the negotiations either way.
It was a personal. It was a personal effort for Senator Sonko to remain relevant. For him, what needed to be out there is that he is actually in the conversation that the country is having at the moment. Now, like I'm saying, if you're the fool who doesn't see these things coming and you play into his hands, you can't blame anybody. Because if you really are working as a senator, it should be clear that there are certain negotiations you'll have, and you have an office, you have facility. Why didn't he meet these people, even if it's one-on-one or separately? And if he was meeting them as a friend, meet them in a place where it is open, you're meeting as friends. But don't go closet somebody. Have what you call a personal discussion, and then float it out there for people to see that you're relevant to the discussion.
Okay, all right.
For sure, he should have, like I said, if he has an office, he should have, but then he has a chance to make, I mean, to even in that discussion, he would have even been more relevant if he had even invited those officials to his office, have a formal chat.
Try to broker a deal.
Yes,
but let that be a lesson. Let that be a lesson to other people who don't know who they're dealing with. That's a very good lesson for them.
Now they know. Okay. How friends treat others. Let's talk about our government now, and like you say, there's the impression that the government may be broke and, you know, don't pay them the 3 weeks salary, but then give the same money back to them. But then again, there's a contradiction here. 2.5 billion shillings that is to be spent because, you know, Kenya's turning 50. And amongst that, in that budget, there's 50 million shillings for a bronze statue of Kibaki. 365 million shillings to entertain guests. Millions more for sitting allowances for the committee members. I keep saying I'm in the wrong profession.
And then you can't pay teachers.
And you can't pay teachers.
I've always told you, Yvonne, here, when it comes to money that it's easily available, that can be looted from the taxpayers' coffers, that one is always readily available. But look at money that you can use to put it into proper use. That money will never be there. It will always never be there.
That being said, Martin, Kenya is turning 50. It's a good thing. Should we not celebrate? Is that what we're saying?
Celebrate about what?
We've turned 50.
Okay, so we shall celebrate in a manner that leaves us completely maimed at the end of the celebration.
I mean, the 2.5 billion aside, let's, you know, Kenya is 50.
No, that's a different discussion. If there are merits for marking 50, there are a lot of merits. I am for marking this celebration, yes. But if you're going to have a celebration that will leave us maimed and unconscious at the end of it all, I'm not sure that's the kind of celebration I want to see. But we cannot refuse to mark the 50 years. That is important.
Okay.
There are things we have learned, there are things we have developed and gone through. We have a narrative to speak of as a country. That we need to observe. I have no quarrel with that.
Okay. 50 million shillings for a bronze statue?
If you can put that kind of money into our healthcare system, put that money into our education system, have people, I mean, when people leave their houses, they will not be worried whether if their kids are going to get sick, there's medical care for them and stuff like that. Inject that money into that kind of use. We can mark the 50 years, but not with the kind of pomp and wastage of public resources just to show that we have arrived at 50 years. No, definitely the amount of money that we require in all these sectors that very soon, trust me, you will hear the nurses up on the streets. You will hear the doctors coming up. Have we satisfied all these needs so that we can be able to spare some more money to do some other luxurious stuff? But like I said, you know, with the 2.5 billion already, some people in government are already salivating, and some guys already bloating like a hyena somewhere. They are looking at that kind of money, where they are going to make the deals, what kind of stuff, what kind of things they are going to use, you know. It sounds very, very appealing, but trust me, if it is something that you want to say you're going to put this money into a structured thing where nothing will pilfer to the kind of characters who do these wheeler dealings in government, that money will never be there.
Two things stand out for me, and I see this as a test to the administration of President Uhuru Kenyatta, two things stand out. One, this is the era of communication. There's a lot of information. Kenyans are now able to discuss, even though they probably can't process or comprehend the figures, but Kenyans are now able at all levels to discuss. There's 2 billion being talked about, there's 17 billion being talked about, and they're able to hear in that same discussion, there is a hole in the budget to the tune of 50 billion. How are you going to plug it in? Here's the thing, if the country, if your citizens are already having a discussion to the areas of want, to the areas where they are seeing gaps, it is not prudent of you to then speak about appropriating huge amounts of money to something which is not tangible to them. This is a question, again, of communication. You need to be communicating a consistency in the way that you're rolling out your plans, so that whenever you have, because it is not a bad thing to celebrate.
Yes.
And even for those who are salaried, whether you're earning 10,000 bob or a million shillings, it is there. It is even biblical. You will do your tithing, you will pay your dues, and you're allowed to have a little portion of money where you will go and enjoy that you've been a working person. All right? There is no challenge in celebrating. But if your celebration overrides your rollout as an administration, then you have a serious problem. It means you're not communicating in a manner in which you carry the country forward in your rollout plan, and now you have everybody arguing about, because right now if you take a microphone and put it across to any Kenyan, they will always tell you, put this money here and take it here. Take this money from this place and take it where. So if the country is doing your budget for you, there's a problem, because the budget is not supposed to be taunted so loosely that anybody can discuss, why don't you remove this money here and put it here? It means there's a gap in communication.
Exactly, and if
the
they already know where the money should go.
Kenyans have got to understand, when we said we have a new constitution, we've got to understand it gave us bigger responsibility as individuals. We have a veto. And unless we understand the power of the veto and see how to engage our veto, then we shall worry about such figures being bandied about. But when we understand the power of citizens to intervene using the constitutional avenues from the local assemblies to parliament, to the Senate, until we understand we've got to take charge of those institutions, then we will not worry. Even if somebody wakes up and says, I'm going to spend 300 billion in building parachutes for cabinet secretaries so they can jump out of choppers when there's traffic. You don't start jumping up and down and getting malaria about it. You just say, oh, that's a nice one. We'll deal with you at this level. We shall veto it. Until we understand we have veto power now. So let's not hanging around and bunching together and crying foul. When we've been empowered, about it. Step up and do something.
All right, there we go. Let's move on to what happened in Kisii. A very sad state of affairs. There was a funeral, by the way, for these young children who'd lost their lives in that horrific bus crash. President was scheduled to attend. He didn't at the last minute. Perhaps intelligence, this time.
Not perhaps.
Yeah,
you're right,
it was, yes. It was actually spot on for once, the intelligence, and was used as it should have been, and he decided not to attend. What was sad, and I think got a lot of criticism for the CORD leader, was how that was just turned into a political rally. I mean, I've said it here before, and I think I did say, especially during the campaigns, I just did not feel that pastors and religious leaders, imams, whoever it is, should ever give politicians a platform in church at a religious event. Because, like we always say on the show, they are politicians. What else do you expect them to do? We saw this during the campaigns. Oh, we'll go into church and then they'd start making political statements on the pulpit, and I just found that completely disrespectful, whether you agree with the faith or not. Same thing happened in Kisii. What is your take on those events?
Well, first of all, it was, like you put it rightly, the president was advised not to attend because intelligence was clear that there's going to be trouble here. And it was, whether it was good for him to avoid it, maybe if he was there, maybe things would have been different, I believe. You
think?
I want to think so. It could have been different. That
crowd was pretty vocal about their opinions.
But what were they protesting about?
Well, that's his absence.
It was his absence they were protesting about.
Absence.
So he should have been there?
I believe he should have been there.
All right.
From the word go, the government made a lot of good things about when this happened.
They lifted some of the children.
Ordered for whatever care to be undertaken for the victims. Even ordered for them the ones who had not who are badly injured to be lifted
to Nairobi.
So he already showed the face of government. He did very well. I think, for me, the people who misadvised him not to attend did the wrong thing.
But
he should have been there to console, because he is...
yes, they could have been protesting for his against his absence. But then again, what picture would that have been right after the election if the president got heckled?
Well, look, this guy is under no illusion that not the entire country is behind him.
Right,
but
and
this
perhaps
is an
that's not the
opportunity.
picture he wanted to paint.
Let me tell you something. As Kenyans, there are certain things which we are consistent about. We are not unduly and overly aggressive as Kenyans. Yes, we will express ourselves in certain areas, more than others in certain areas. But listen, he would have already put a stop to that just by showing up. That changes the argument, because he had, like Martin is saying, there's some good things he was doing that were already working for him. I don't even know why we're not hearing about those people. Have they been charged in court? Because that's what the promises they made. That was an opportunity to tell us that this is happening. Where are those administrators who were supposed, because unless people start being charged in court, the headmasters are not going to stop doing this thing. So I think it is another situation again where the president's people, in their overzealousness to show that they're in sync with his thinking, have misadvised him.
All right, he should have shown up. But let's talk about former Prime Minister Raila's conduct at this venue as well. Taking it up, it almost looked like a campaign rally. If you were watching that, you would be forgiven for, that was a funeral.
But politicians talk in funerals. They talk in funerals, they talk in weddings.
And is this a good thing?
You cannot take it away from them. This is in their blood. They stand up and see a crowd.
It almost sounds like we're endorsing what Raila Odinga did.
Whether it is in a wedding, whether it is in whatever social gathering, so long as you give a politician a microphone and he sees a crowd, whatever sort of crowd, he's thinking
all right. Allow me to say yes, but allow me to say differently
challenge?
also.
Mobilization.
That's right, but the president is also a politician, isn't he?
Yes.
So the president should be allowed to speak, but he's also a politician. I mean, he got there through politics. But, you know, politician, both of them are politicians. I mean, you get what I'm saying?
No, the president will measure his delivery because he'll be called upon to speak differently on that case. In any case, he's not petitioning.
And the former prime minister is not called upon to speak differently at a forum such as that?
The former prime minister will use every available opportunity, and rightly so, to poke holes in the government of the day. That is his job description now. You can't expect any less or any different from him.
That's right. So are we okay with the statements that he made at the funeral? Was it appropriate, do you think? In a word, yes or no, Martin?
Which ones are you talking about?
Any and all of the statements. Did we hear him say, okay, you know, it was sad that these people lost their lives? I mean, taking advantage of such an incident to prop himself up.
Well, number one...
Was it a good thing or not?
No.
I mean, do you agree with how he conducted himself at the funeral?
First thing, we didn't hear everything that was said.
That's right.
Yeah? Kenyans didn't have the opportunity to hear his entire delivery. Second, like I've said, I don't think people should be surprised that he would speak out of turn in that situation. It is a free platform for him to do so. What do you expect him to do there? Go and say that, I'm sorry the president didn't show up. I know he means well, and I know this will be sorted out. He's not going to say that. No, that's what I'm saying. No? We didn't hear his entire message. If we heard everything he said, maybe there's places where he actually spoke to it and said, we need to put a stop to this. Maybe there are places where he actually spoke to it and said, and I'm hoping these guys will be charged to court. We didn't hear that. We only had his direct confrontation with the government of the day, which wouldn't surprise anybody who understands they're not singing in the same choir. He will say those things.
Okay.
And believe me, like I said, if the president was there, maybe the tone would have been different.
It would have been different for sure. Because now
the kind of statements he made, he could have tailored, because the president would have been the one to speak last. So he would be very careful in terms of what he was saying. And trust me, it would have been a different ballgame. I don't know.
I don't buy that argument that the president should have been there to temper the sort of conversations that former president.
That was a very emotive. It was a very emotional function. And definitely emotions were bound to explode.
But the emotions were not even over the death of the children.
To show up.
The emotions were over other matters
and
altogether.
That was his chance.
It is the vacuum that was lost.
That probably had nothing to do with the deceased.
That was his chance to bring the focus to the right thing. Because him showing up was not to countenance whatever the former prime minister will say. That is not why I would want to see the president there. Not for him to show up there so that if anything that Raila Odinga will say, he can take a swipe back at it. No. But he lost an opportunity to actually continue with his message of peace and reconciliation and actually show the locals of Kisii, I have a plan. I'm going to fix this. I'm unhappy about this. My minister is actually sorting out this people being charged to court. And I'm saying this is the rule regarding children's transportation from now. He had a chance to do that. But not to go there, anybody expecting him to go there and win over the people of Kisii politically. That was not his brief. That was not his brief. He cannot go there and he was brave enough to go to the funeral of the late official of the teaching service. And that was in Luoland. That was people would have expected him to be told of so soon after that competition, why are you here? But it was an obvious situation where you're told, if you have a message, we want to listen to it. And that's why I believe had he gone, it would have been a different conversation.
Okay. Talking about that, then, of course, the result of that was that the government spokesman heavily criticized the events that took place in Kisii.
Oh, no.
Yes.
No, man. The government who?
Okay.
First,
wait.
Okay. Go ahead.
Man,
Okay.
I'm going to have some water.
Yeah, please take a sip.
Did you just mention, what did you say again?
Just take a sip.
Okay.
It gets interesting.
All right.
And he talked about,
hit us.
that the former prime minister has refused to surrender certain vehicles, said he was using an illegal siren. I don't believe there's something like an illegal siren. A siren is a siren. It's probably the use of it that is illegal. But anyway, so he talks about that. The Star today, I think it's on page 3, Joseph Olelenku is quoted as saying that that is not even an argument because those vehicles that they're talking about, Raila had has already given them back.
He was on TV, he was on TV, and I saw him.
And he said those vehicles have been given back.
Yes.
Okay. So Olelenku says the vehicles have been given back. The spokesman says he still has those vehicles and is using an
I'm
illegal
actually being
siren.
very polite here. Listening to you roll out that statement.
I just wanted us to lay that all there. Let it rip.
First and foremost,
hang on.
Okay, all right, Martin, you go.
Just gather your thoughts first, collect yourself, have another sip. Martin?
First, we need to know, who is he speaking for?
Okay.
In the structure of government that I saw Uhuru Kenyatta release the other day, there's no position of government spokesman. And Uhuru can, if people want to know what the government is saying and Uhuru Kenyatta, Uhuru introduced us to his spokesman. And he said it clearly, this is State House spokesman. If you don't find me, this guy is going to be there.
But some would say that's a State House spokesman.
No, but Martin,
but not a government one?
State House is not a house, it's not something isolated. It's government. That's where the government sits.
Good grief, man.
That's where the leader of government sits.
Hang on. Yes, Martin.
That's where the leader of government
speak about
No, I just want Martin to finish because I know by the time you begin, we'll be here for a while.
The fact that you can see the Minister for Interior, whatever, has given this kind of a different story.
Interior design.
So where did Mudhui Kariuki get his information?
Is he that lone voice in the wind?
Who is he speaking for? Who? I don't know whether, because even Kimemia, that position has changed.
Can I
There's
speak
no
now?
head of cabinet. I mean, there's no head of civil service.
You know, I like
he's only the secretary to the cabinet.
No, Martin, I like how you look up in the air.
I'm trying to look at the person he's
trying to find him.
I'm trying to.
Am I allowed to speak now?
Yes.
Look.
Yes, Louis, go ahead.
First of all,
while Martin looks for inspiration.
It was a huge mistake for the media to have even aired anything that jumped out of the mouth of that fellow. Whether he was speaking from his bathroom door or from some office, it was a huge mistake.
Okay.
Here's the thing. The president of this country calls the official voice, called the Fourth Estate, called the media, calls them in public on live television and tells the country, I understand I'm meeting with the people who speak to Kenyans. I'm also telling you and Kenyans from today going forward, if you cannot reach me, and not just if you cannot reach me, one, State House is now an office. Let's just get that clear. State House is now an office. He's officially working from State House, which means a lot of declarations, pronouncements, and direction will come from State House. And you officially told the country, there's a chap here called Manoa Isipisu. Find him. He even ventured and went ahead for the deputy president and said, talk to one Mugonyi if you want to hear what the deputy president is thinking.
All right.
At that forum, never at one moment, even to serve up a file or even, I don't know, maybe rearrange a microphone, at no point was this chap ever introduced to the public in recognition that there's such an office that will continue. He wasn't even mentioned. How then is he speaking? Who is he speaking for? That is what I cannot begin to comprehend. And it is a mistake for the media to keep giving this guy face and voice.
Well, but the office exists.
Where?
Where?
He's still in office, isn't he?
Which one?
He does not wait, I agree with you that in the structure that was released by President Uhuru Kenyatta, that post is not there. Is he there? Does he get paid a salary every month? Most likely. Does the office? That's my question. So of course we would cover it if it's there. And here's the thing: if it is not in that structure, then perhaps we should, get to a point where we scrap this office altogether because he still gets a salary.
Are you aware that when he was clowning around with those shenanigans about motor vehicles, the relevant cabinet secretary was in the same place where he stood up and said, in effect, he said, "I have no idea what this job is talking about." And this is the position. And look at that scenario. When we give voice and face to the wrong people, you now get the country discussing another irrelevancy. We're now discussing 6 cars, either due or undue to one Raila or not exist. How does that become a conversation for the country to engage in at this point in time when there's so much we need to deal with? Why? Because we gave some... Let me be nice. Let me just stop.
We've been discussing something that is non-existent.
Good grief.
And you can see the kind of emotion, the way he was so emotional about when he was speaking about it.
That guy is emotional about his name.
Passionate for who?
No, please don't.
You're giving us the wrong information. Please, Uhuru Kenyatta and his government needs to tell us very clearly, and for sure, so that we don't get to discuss irrelevancies. We've done this thing for a whole almost 2-3 days, yet there's absolutely nothing that was there. We are discussing something that never existed because somebody else wanted to become relevant. So that's why I was looking up in there to see who is giving him this information, this direction, because definitely who is he speaking for? He's not speaking for Uhuru Kenyatta, he's not speaking for William Ruto.
And he's not speaking for Lelenko either.
He's not speaking for Lelenko.
Apparently.
So where is he getting the information?
But then this office, I think, has always been dogged by controversy. When former President Mwai Kibaki came into office, it was seen as a good initiative then. Because remember at the time, I mean, similar to what we're seeing now with Manoa Esipisu, that we now have, a point man. But even then, when it was Dr. Alfred Mutua, who's now governor, he also did give, some conflicting information. You remember when some Kenyans were held.
That was a different scenario because
but if
one,
you recall that,
it was a recognized
office.
Now, whether Mutua tripped up or failed or succeeded, but it was a relevant, constituted office where we knew that whether we like him or not, or whether we enjoyed speaking to the government spokesman or not, it was a recognized, gazetted office. And the government of the day actually referred to him. They actually made reference to that office. But there have been no
references of this government to the office?
He needs to tell us who is speaking for. Really, and I will petition the office of the president because they need to tell us how it is all right for them when they have invited editors who speak to this country, how it is okay for the president's team to allow some chap to... I'm almost speaking in Luo.
It's wrong.
And let me just stop.
This country does not need to be treated to this kind of circus. Unless both Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto want to take us in circles, they need to tell us very well.
That is a joke.
They mandated even the cabinet secretaries to be able to speak.
That is a joke long drawn out now. It's too far gone.
Funny anymore?
Yes, that joke has to be pulled.
Okay. He was present though at that media breakfast.
I am going to go in Lou about this guy.
Did I see, man?
I spotted him and...
Oh, somewhere?
I spotted him. Yeah.
Where, on the lawns there or somewhere? I didn't see him Yvonne, that's what I'm saying.
You were too busy.
I was the president, but I never saw him.
Okay, all right. Anyway, there's things I know about what was said, but I will not say that here because it's
and the
off the
invitee were engaging. It's as basic as that. Now you need to tell me which part of invitee
he was none of
or
those.
Invited. I don't know where he fits in that scenario because the invited and the invitee were engaging, and the whole country saw the engagement.
Okay. So if I were to invite him here for an interview?
By yourself. Don't even call us here.
Yeah, but it will be good.
What?
Ask him, not with us.
Oh, okay.
With him.
What? Okay.
Ask him who he represents, who he speaks for, and in the structure of government where he falls, so that we know. We just want to understand. I have seen that structure. Kabisa, I have seen it. And he's nowhere there. It's no,
and
no pun intended. He's not there.
Do it under entertainment, like Saturday morning, not at an important hour like this.
Okay.
Find a downtime to do that kind of conversation.
And we need to know where he's getting
this is serious stuff. So look for
and
a downtime.
Who he's working for, because definitely he's not working for this government.
Do we still have Club Kiboko? You know, maybe
it doesn't work for this government.
Find
that is a fact.
It's 8 o'clock.
Find something. Club
It is a
Kiboko.
fact, Yvonne.
This is a serious platform. We don't want that kind of things.
Yeah.
It is 8 o'clock. We need to take a break. I definitely do need to take.
This is your fault. You should not have such a measure. This is your fault.
Gosh, you guys. From what I'm looking up in the rather, 40 MPs are now seeking to impeach him, all because of his statements against the national government, saying that there are efforts there to frustrate the process of devolution. And, you know, like I kept saying, is there a possibility that we will see him on the other side in 2017, on the other side of this political divide? But nonetheless, let's just talk about his statements recently. And he's not alone. Senator Kipchumba Murkomen had also made certain strong statements, and we'd heard of, you know, efforts made to tell him, hey, tone down, you know, the conversation regarding devolution. What do you think of all of these issues that are taking place?
First of all, Isaac Ruto, for these other Johnny come latelys from Rift Valley who do not know him, Ruto is a very strong man and is very independent-minded. And the fact that he made those statements, he knows what he's doing. And he is not a person who just speaks out of turn or out of tune and doesn't not knowing. He says things the way they are. If for sure he has seen that the government is not supporting devolution, he has a duty to say so. And it was for me, it was foolhardy for some 40 MPs to come into a room and all of them to start talking against Isaac Ruto. Mm-hmm. That does not make sense to me. There is people who do not understand where Isaac Ruto is coming from and where he's headed. Because prior even to this being elected as governor, I had an opportunity and a chance to have a chat with Isaac Ruto. Isaac Ruto is very clear in what he wants to see, how county governments need to go.
So, Martin, do you believe his allegations that there are efforts to frustrate the process of devolution?
I would not doubt it. It has been said over and over again. He's not saying anything new. It's only the time we've been talking about it, and there had been some disquietness here and there, and you know, it's been said.
What are some of those examples, though? You know, because
he gave them out.
We keep talking about efforts to frustrate.
He has outlined them. He said there are some certain functions which the county governments have budgeted for, and they have
the capacity.
This thing of capacity is that's where people go wrong.
Here's the thing.
How do you build capacity?
Is there anybody from this, from the president, is there anybody who can stand up and tell Kenyans that devolution is working like clockwork? That's the person I'd like to see, because it is a fact. It is actually a redundant argument to engage in the challenges that devolution is having in rolling out. It is a challenge situation. And right now, if people are beginning to show and flag areas that need intervention, it is a wasted effort to try and now quash their voices. First of all, like Martin has said, for especially a local leader from Rift Valley to take on Isaac Ruto on that score is to show political immaturity. Isaac is not one of those guys who you're just going to jump on his head and run over him. He knows what he's saying. He's not a guy who you will rubbish. You rubbish Isaac at your own peril. It's just that he's refused to be a choir member. So now you'll be upset with him because he's refused to be a choir member. Why don't you address the issues he's raising to show confidence in the fact that devolution is rolling out? Why not put up an argument that shows Isaac, these are the things you've raised, but here are the answers. If you want to impeach him, well, let's see the process go through. It's one of the things we want to see if we actually work with this new constitution. Don't give us threats and make use of the media to do somersaults and star jumps in the form of political statements. Then go ahead, let's see you put the process in motion. But you cannot shout down this guy because he's saying, I am seeing gaps. And you cannot then try and confuse that, even with his position as a chair, and effectively being chair of that council, he is their spokesperson. When they want to issue a statement jointly, he's a fellow to say it. And that is not a problem.
Yeah.
So for him to step up and say there's a problem, that is not what the challenge should be. If it now goes down to a party scenario,
then the party needs to go back, lock their doors, and decide as a party member, is he speaking out of turn? Because we cannot speak here with regard to what his party expects and doesn't expect of him. They need to sort that out behind closed doors.
Okay, which I think is what's going to happen.
But as a governor of a county in this country, he has voice beyond party politics.
All right.
And we listen to that voice. That is the one Kenyans will listen to.
Because as he's elected as governor, he's now governor of all residents of Bomet County.
If you want to sort him out at party level, do it. Go and close your doors and decide whether he's speaking out of turn, and separate from Kenyans this overzealousness we have of people trying to show the president, I'm with you, or the deputy president, we've got your back. His back is not exposed. Why do you have his back? He's not crying foul. We are not going to succeed by forming a national choir. That's not what will work for this country.
Martin?
The bigger picture is that I can understand the fact that URP is in coalition with TNA, and the fact that one side is saying a different story from the other. It puts definitely the Deputy President William Ruto in an awkward situation. That's the larger picture, and you can understand. I would really even know. I would get the hint on where those 40 MPs were coming from, because definitely they must have been whipped by somebody to go and say the opposite, so that they can also look good within this coalition, because it's a coalition government. If you don't want, if you understand, it's URP and TNA. So it puts William Ruto in a very awkward situation. And this definitely, he would not have come out himself to whip, to take on Isaac, because even Isaac is the only guy who can stand up to William Ruto, believe you me, in URP. Forget about all these other fellows. All these others are hanging on him William
being a
Ruto's
founder member
cocktails.
of URP.
Huh?
He's one of the founder members of
Isaac?
URP, yes.
No, Isaac has been very consistent and vocal in his own right.
To add to the fact that you're saying he's one of the few people that can speak.
Isaac has always been a stand-up guy. He's been a stand-up guy. And that's what I'm saying. Let's not get embroiled in what the party should react to as a disrespect gesture to the deputy president. The party has every right to lock themselves up in a dungeon somewhere and come and tell the country he's out of order according to our party constitution. Then we shall accept what they say.
But do you think then, in all the politics of, should they be speaking with one voice, that the essence of the message is lost, so that there is a problem with devolution and that no efforts are being made to address those issues?
The issue of devolution, it goes out, basically it's from on the county government's level. So, and the governors are the key in terms of devolution. So when something is wrong, you don't expect them to keep quiet, even with the kind of people like Isaac Ruto, who have seen it all in politics, and they know everything in politics in terms of how things have been moving. You can't expect them to keep quiet when they're seeing something going the wrong way. They will definitely speak up, and this country must accept the culture of divergent views. If people can be able, if you're seeing something wrong, it does not matter whether you're in URP, you're TNA, you're Wiper, or what. If something is wrong, it's wrong. And that has to be accepted.
The only choir I want to celebrate is my choir at Valley Road, Nairobi Pentecostal Church. That's the choir I want to see singing, not a government choir. So this whole thing of people have to speak from the same voice and ABCD is ridiculous. In fact, it takes us back to the days where we didn't have a voice, we could never speak about issues that are not being done. What needs to happen now? If there are people who are raising flags, they're raising red flags on how devolution is rolling out, address those issues. Again, I say this is a communication challenge with the Jubilee government. Put out a roadmap and tell people what needs to be done within a certain space of time, what are the indicators, so that people can understand that there's actually a direction we're heading in. And when you put up those markers, we're able to roll out devolution in a way that is actually understood by the citizenry. But right now, because everybody has their own spin, if you speak to the guy who right now I think is seriously embattled, the chair of the Wamwangi is in serious trouble.
The transition authority.
Why should that be the situation? There are those leaders who think the problem to the devolution is the presence of one Anwai Guru. There are those who think this is so there's so many scenarios that are being discussed, but discussed wrong.
So that is the conversation that we should be having?
Show direction. What is not happening in devolution that was mapped out? And let's also admit, this is a new thing we're doing. There is no precedent in this country to the level at which we're arguing. We are stuck at the basic arguments of which government is more powerful than the other.
And then, so of course, it takes me back to what you said in the beginning, that show me one person who can say devolution is running smoothly. It's still being set up, though.
Which is why, if nobody can stand up on full authority and say, as far as I'm concerned, devolution is on point, it's on course, it's a marvel. If you can't make that statement, why are you upset when somebody makes a statement that we are limping because of 1, 2, 3, 4? So you don't want to admit...
I think Anne Waiguru has made that same statement that you're talking about. Anne Waiguru
is fine. She says, this is the plan, this is what needs to be done. This is a leader who is saying, I know there are things that need to be done.
Yes.
So she's not even doing that foolish thing of saying everything is fine,
yeah,
nobody should complain.
That's right.
So if she's admitting that there are challenges, why are you getting upset with Isaac? Because he's a political leader.
So in effect, they're saying the same thing?
Don't get upset with Isaac. Sort out what Isaac is talking about.
They're both saying that there are challenges and there are challenges that they're working towards?
Any sane person is saying there are challenges with the rollout of devolution.
And like you said, the governors are the ones they're implementers of this devolution system, not members of parliament. Members of parliament are not the guys who are rolling out the county governments. Them, they're just they manage constituencies. So I think
let's understand though, these 40 MPs that say they want to have a push to have him impeached. Can they do that?
Impeach
according to the law?
They can't do that. That is the work of. They can do that in parties.
In their party structure.
In the party structure, you can deal with that, but you cannot remove Isaac Ruto or any other governor from governorship. These are people who are directly elected by the electorate. So you cannot come out and even if you remove him from the party, he will stay as the governor.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Let's separate the discussion. If URP is unhappy with Isaac, sort it out. That's your that's your home business. That's your housekeeping business. You go sort it out. It is wrong for us to speak to that matter at party level. But when you give us Isaac at national level, we will look at him as a county governor, and then we will address his issues.
Of the governor's council.
And we shall address his issues as such. And you must understand, every governor has a selfish ambition, which is rightly so because you're a politician. You have a selfish ambition to continue in the next dispensation.
All right, let's talk about governors. While that is happening here, and the Deputy President will be meeting with governors and senators from his end, a couple of governors allied to CORD are in the US for a trip to learn about devolution.
Well, you can't stop them from going anywhere they want. I mean, governors have their own work cut out. The other day, Alfred Mutua was in Dubai doing his stuff. The governors, as you understand, they have the leeway and the mandate to even to solicit for support and funds from wherever they can get it. They are even the Constitution gives them leeway even to be able to engage with the other cities, other countries.
What of those people that say, well, why go all the way to the States to learn about that? Can't we have
this just
experts
goes
here?
to show the level of lack of exposure and lack of information that the people who are arguing about this thing have. And as a country, and I go back to the media, we have a role to play in exposing some of these things. We need to explain how these meetings come about. We need to understand in the way that modern democracies or modern societies work, these people have separate funding to support growing democracies. It's nothing new. It's not a big deal. And people need to understand, if Raila Odinga wants to ride on that crest, that's his business with his people. But this should not be looked at as such an amazing venture that people have rolled off into the States. And even for him, some of those visits he's making, they're very mundane visits. They're visits which don't even score. That's what I'm saying. If we did our homework and we realized who else sits in those conferences that we make such a big deal out of that, he's jetted out to a conference. Now we are worried about governors going, why can't they go and interact? For how many years have members of parliament been leaving this country to go and interact with their peers and their colleagues outside the country? Why is it an issue now? We are having the wrong arguments as far as these things are concerned.
Absolutely.
In fact, I'm happy if these guys can be sent out as often as is possible, because what will happen, they'll begin to understand one of the things they need to start enjoying is a fresh type of leadership within their own local party structures. It will backfire on somebody who thinks they can be exposed and contained. So please expose them as much as you want, but let's not get dragged into an argument. For as long as Parliament has been around, there have been trips being made to even crazy parts of this world.
They will be continuing.
Yeah.
I think even the Speaker, if he had not come back, was in Namibia.
Yes, and equally,
Commonwealth Parliamentary Association.
And equally, they invite experts. Equally, they invite their peers. So to have a discussion now about should they have gone, should somebody have come, again, we're getting into an irrelevant discussion.
All right.
This happens.
Here's something else. Out of those 17 that were set to go, Evans Kidero and I think Ali Hassan Joho said they would not attend for whatever reason. Either they're busy or it's just not the right time for them. And then, you know, word is coming out that, well, you know, Evans Kidero might not necessarily be. He's another one, I think, who's feeling the heat just like Isaac Ruto is in his own backyard. And Anyang' Nyong'o has come out to say that he is a life member of ODM and he's in court. We'll remember that Dr. Evans Kidero did host the president at his private residence for lunch on one of those occasions. Is that what we're saying now, that the politics has reached a level where if Evans Kidero is seen talking to Jubilee counterparts, if Isaac Ruto is saying something against, you know, his party that is the ruling party, that is not allowed?
I think we are still reeling with this archaic mind of whereby when somebody from this particular party is seen to the other, talking to another, is being seen like as if he's doing the wrong thing. That kind of
courting with the enemy.
Archaic mind must leave it kabisa from our minds, because it's not the best kind of thing. Evans Kidero, Kahemba or Lusaka or any governor or any senator is free to engage with anybody. There's absolutely nothing wrong. After all, Kidero is the governor of Nairobi. This is where even the seat of government is.
Right.
Kidero can walk into State House anytime he wants and engage with the president. And the president can meet him at any time. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that.
Let's be factual.
We will judge these governors after 5 years.
Precisely.
We will put them on the scale and see, did you deliver? Did you push this devolution forward or not? That will be the scale. Whoever they meet, wherever they meet them, should not be preoccupy our minds. That's the problem. We keep on doing this petty politics every day in, day out, just to check on who is meeting who is seeing who has gone to have a drink with who. That should never arise. People must engage constantly and throughout in this country without people poking their noses behind them. What we need to do is to hold them accountable after the 5 years.
You don't have to be. You don't have to be in special information. You don't have to have a report from intelligence if you live in the city of Nairobi to understand. If there's one guy who's got his hands full, it's one Evans Kidero. So if Evans says he's too busy to travel out of the country, who's going to argue with that?
Right.
Look at Joho. Joho,
busy,
I don't even know if that guy sleeps at night. Okay? So if Joho tells you, I can't, can you imagine if Joho stepped out of the country right now on a trip that is not even understood by the people of Mombasa? He's in serious trouble. But here's the thing. The argument, and as Martin is saying, to have people arguing about showing up in the presence of a different party is a really old argument. I've just come back from spending 4 days in Machakos, all right? The plans that that county has involve the groundbreaking of their city. The plans they have is those people, they're quite organized, they've got a lot of things they're rolling out. One of the things, and I choose this example because of the argument we're having now, they're going to have a groundbreaking ceremony in the next couple of weeks or so. And who's their chief guest? The president. They've even invited the deputy president. So do you want to tell me that because one Alfred Mutua has invited the president, he should not be out there in the States with Raila Odinga because it is going to interfere with this process? That's totally ridiculous thinking. Anybody who understands how development works, you cannot expect that there will be a sitting governor in this country who doesn't understand for their plans to roll out, they've got to negotiate with the government of the day. That is why even after all this nonsense about Makueni, when the dust, and there's a lot of dust in your area,
a lot of it.
When the dust literally settles, that chap is going to stroll into Nairobi and is going to sit with the government of the day to roll out his plan. So if anybody expects that the political argument is if you are in court, you must never interact, that is somebody who's, in fact, they should not be part of 50 years of Kenya celebration. They need to be in another country. You cannot roll out any agenda without negotiating with the government of the day. You can't do that.
And also that the fact that the election is over, we're expecting that now party lines to some extent recede into the background, and we now have the national platform or the county platform, whatever platform
that is. Which is exactly why we're saying, as a country, we will look at Isaac Ruto as a county governor. If his party is unhappy with him, by all means, go back, sort out your manenos, and come and tell us what you've decided.
While we talk about that, I want us to cast our eye outside the country for a moment because of what's happening in Egypt and in Cairo after, Morsi was deposed, and, they've got military leadership now. And it just seems like it's the same thing happening over again. We had Hosni Mubarak in court, and now they're proposing the same thing for Mohamed Morsi, and, over that jailbreak and how he handled that in 2011? What is the solution? About 100 people dead in the last 3 days, pro and, anti-Morsi protests taking place in that country. Sometimes, and I hate to be pessimistic, but I do fear that with the way Egypt is going, it could end up the Somali way without having a substantive government for years to come if this isn't sorted out. It
is a very sad scenario for Egypt to go through the events that they are happening there, because Egypt was being looked at as one of the major and greater nations in Africa in terms of even development, economic development, and stuff like that. And with the scenarios that are taking place, it's bringing out a situation whereby you might not have a leader, somebody taking grip of that country in a while.
Yeah.
And that's a very sad scenario. Whereas most of the countries are moving to political stability and cohesion, Egypt is rolling out the opposite. And whether it is a revolution that country requires or not, I think is something that I hoped that the African Union would have been able to deal with, because Egypt is part of the African Union, although they are also within the Arab League on the other side. So these two organizations need to come up with a plan to be able to forestall what is happening there, because the more this scenario unfold, the more people are going to lose their lives. And Egypt, being what it is, it's going, if it really falls into and recedes to the situation we are seeing in Somalia, then we will have like the African country being boxed in from both sides in terms of having instability, and that's not very good for a continent like this. So it's something that, for me, the Arab League as well as the African Union need to take a lead in terms of pursuing the a solution towards that.
Are we doing enough as Africans to intervene in what's happening in Cairo?
It is a test for the AU. It is a test in regard to, do they just talk shop, or they have interventions that actually count for something? This is the test, excuse me, this is the test for the AU right now. If they step in, how do they step into this scenario? And like you've heard, it's not a one-sided area. They're part of the Arab League, they're part of the AU. It becomes a bit dicey, but it is a test for the AU to see how they can intervene. It is also a test for the growth and development of any country. Stifling voices, as we say, the absence of conflict doesn't mean peace. So when there's been an absence of the space to speak and express yourselves, the day that people get a crack out of it, they'll just break the windows down and the doors down. So there are lessons to be learned in terms of stifling the voices of the masses. When you just write out prescriptions which you think will work for them, this is a result of years and years of stifling people. What do we do beyond that? Because now it will be difficult to find which is the voice that now we should empower, because it will carry through and carry the peace and aspirations of the Egyptians. And that is where the challenge now lies, because everybody's going to speak up now.
That's right.
And everybody's going to say they're the fixer.
And when you think about it, in revolutions such as this, do you think then the eventual, the whole message might not be told anymore? It might be lost?
Historians have a way of laying out the entire cycle of a revolution. And it has to go through a very painful dip before it comes out then for there to be peace and healing. And that is why I feel a bit constrained, because we're not at the point where we can now say we're going to go in clear ground anytime soon. It has to go through that very painful dip before it comes back up.
Well, when we had the little turmoil in 2007, the international community was very quick to come in.
Right.
I'm not seeing that kind of same zeal with the international community. They ought to find a way of dealing with this. I mean, the UN specifically should find also should try and see how they can sort out this crisis, because the more they leave it, the more it keeps escalating and the more lives get lost. And then the destabilization of the country in terms of even if they get back their footing, where do they begin from? It will
take a while.
Spill over for sure.
So the international community here is also failing.
I mean, I think even when you talk about that and the interventions, I think in Syria as well, there was one analyst who's quoted as saying Syria is worse than Rwanda. and, you know, the international community continues to blame itself for staying away for those 100 days while, you know, the massacre took place. But, you know, it really is about, and I think these are stories that should be told, about what's happening across our borders. It's all well and good to continue to talk about Isaac Ruto and everything that's happening here.
Well, especially because the spillover will affect us.
Yes.
Okay, Kenya has been a haven to a lot of people who are unable to live in their countries for one reason or the other, and we shall feel the effect of that. We are not too far removed from what is happening in Egypt. We are going to feel the effect of which way that goes. That's why we should be interested. That is why we should be interested in seeing that scenario resolved.
Okay, all right. I'd like to finish with this one. Okwara Mtata, let's come back to the country now, recently claimed ownership of the March 4th movement. This is according to the allegations. Yes. Here we go now. Take another glass of water.
No, this is okay.
No, but this is
not a Panadol moment.
No, it's not. No, it's not. But, you know, the CID claimed that, you know, Owalo was working with the March 4th movement. Owalo quickly distanced himself from that one, although it seemed like he was now supporting it when I had the two of them on the show last week. However, anyway, Mtata, you know, wrote to the CID and said, oh, hang on, that's got nothing to do with Owalo. That is my movement. And yet, to date, he hasn't been questioned. Do they not take him seriously?
Then it shows there's some politics being played around here. So if you're, first of all, even they don't need, Mtata would not need not to have written to them. Whatever happens, if there's a serious issue like that, the intelligence would know.
But you see, it was good for Kisii, like I told you. But not good for this one.
No, in terms of, no, that is a different story. You want us to revisit that?
No. No.
That's why I took a moment and
we'll revisit that.
No, but you know, here's what I'm talking about. Intelligence should be good either way.
Well,
if the intelligence was good enough,
maybe intelligence gave them this information in the Kisii issue, but some people who are maybe close to Uhuru misadvised him.
Okay, fine. Okay,
there's so many factors.
Okay.
So that's a different story.
So
on this one,
they're not afraid of Mtata. they don't take him as a serious threat. That's what they're saying. At the very least, then, they should have invited him to then make a statement to that effect. And maybe they should do just out of procedure and out of records, because then you don't want a situation where tomorrow if somebody claims ownership for a dissenting voice, then they don't know how to handle it. In fact, just out of precedence, I would advise that then they invite him and tell him, okay, put it down on paper, let's have it on record, and then you can go skip along and do what it is you do on your on your day. If we need to get you, we know where to get you. It is just that this scenario is really unfortunate if it is indeed intrigue that is being hatched by part of the spin doctors and the mechanics of the Jubilee government, and they've really picked up the wrong ball to spin on this one, because they're going about it in such a bungling fashion. It just doesn't add up. It doesn't add up, because they're giving prominence to people who didn't even have a national voice. I mean, prior to all this noise, who knew who Owalo was? You know? Now you're giving voice to people who don't even have...
Former Prime Minister.
Yeah, chief campaigner means what? When your leader is so big, and that's the guy people see.
Right.
To be relevant in Raila's camp, you really have to be something else. So he was not even a guy recognized nationally. But now, because some people don't know how to put their act together, a chap out of the woodwork comes out, and now he's become a discussion for a national issue.
Okay. Martin, your final thoughts on that one?
To the fact that maybe it's not Owalo they're up to. Maybe it's just a stepping stone towards where they're headed. Maybe that is what is giving credence to that.
Okay, all right. It seems like it'll be quiet over the next 7 days. Do you get that feeling? I mean, Makueni is done, and you know there was a lot to do with Makueni. There was a lot that was happening last week. What do you guys think will make headlines over the next 7 days?
The teachers are, there's a debacle with the teachers, unless the government backs off.
And that's the day after tomorrow, the 31st,
exactly.
right?
You don't pay our teachers, then we go back to another, the same scenario. So it will be another battle for which can be avoided.
All right.
Then
and you think they should be paid?
Believe
for
me,
July?
I'm saying if the return to work formula indicated that there will not be victimization,
they will be paid all their dues.
Okay. They ought to be paid if that is what they agreed.
Right.
But if they didn't agree that, then that's a different story.
Okay.
But if they agreed, let them be paid. And then we stop these suckers. And then I'm sure the teachers have also learned their lesson. They're not stupid.
As to how to conduct
on how
these
to conduct
negotiations?
their business. So it's better we move this country forward as opposed to keep putting in roadblocks every other time we are moving on. So the time to create a crisis so that you can be seen to be solving that crisis should not be what we are witnessing now. So I believe if they agreed on that, let them be paid. If they didn't, it is up to them now to deal with that matter and see how to go forward. And then for me, this Isaac Ruto thing is a non-issue. For me, it shouldn't dominate our headlines in terms of discussing the personality of of Isaac Ruto, because he has said the Jubilee government is frustrating devolution. They should pick up the issues that he's raising so that they deal
address
with them.
That
exactly. And this nonsense of members of parliament also should stop this nonsense of being hooded to press conferences like sheep going to a slaughter just to go and talk about a non-issue. That should not be the case in this day and age. People should be dealing with issues and not be seen to be sycophants of certain people trying to please them so that you get what? I don't understand.
Okay. Louis?
Sort out the teachers' issue. I want to see the power of negotiation. This is modern day democracy. I don't think whipping people into submission is the way going forward, because like I said, you're setting a precedent which you'll have to match in every ensuing challenge. You'll have to match it at that level. You do it, then there's a problem. Mumo Matemu is back in office.
Yes.
Let's see if now we can start seeing a semblance of order in the way that they roll out their work. They've all been shunted into a space where they're just rumor mongers and they're just speculators. Maybe now that there's stewardship, they can now regain the relevance they need as a body which is supposed to steer the arm of being open and accountability to the country in leadership. So he has his plate full.
While we talk about Matemu and his reinstatement as the chair, though, do you think that is what was lacking, that now that they'll have a substantive chair that we'll start to see some action? Or is it really about the systems that are in place? Do you think we're putting so much hope on one person in that office?
The fact he's been put there as a chair, he has his work cut out. An institution cannot move without leadership.
That's right.
So he's the one, he's now been given the job. He has to steer that organization and set the parameters in terms of how they operate. He has a chance now to prove himself and prove the guys, his accusers, that for sure I was equal to the task. And believe me, I think let's give him a chance. Let him see what he can do.
I'm looking forward to seeing him kick into work, because now the institution has a face.
Yes.
Right.
And he recognizes that. So he recognizes that now when people discuss the institution, they'll be discussing it vis-a-vis Matemu. So he knows that's a tall order and he has to work towards that.
All right.
So that, and if we can just sort out this whole question of this expenditure for Kenya at 50, it's a communication challenge. You need now as a government to separate the things that Kenyans need to mark and this whole discussion where it is now everybody's position to discuss the Kenyan budget. Anybody you put a microphone to will tell you, remove this 10 bob here and put this 5 shillings there. It shows you're not taking leadership in that area. So they need to do that. Others, this is a time where, we're critical as Kenyans. We criticize everything. So as much as we say Kenya at 50, it may not be that big a celebration in the hearts of Kenyans, where it should be. That's where the celebration should be. We should recognize as Kenyans,
in the hearts of Kenyans,
why this is good for us.
Because
if it is
our life has become better.
But if it is reduced to that question of expenditure, because I have so many things to celebrate, including this space we're having here. This was unheard of. And not just too long ago, just a few years back, we would not be having this discussion for the benefit of the country. So there's a lot to celebrate. Let's not get it all mired and mixed up in this other shenanigans.
So what we're saying is, yes, we can celebrate 50 years.
Absolutely.
Well, obviously there's still many challenges. Yes, absolutely. But it's how we
celebrate. Not a 50 million bronze or whatever statue.
Let's work around that.
That's missing the point.
All right. Celebrate, but how? And then also, of course, looking forward, because, there's other people who honestly don't have a reason to celebrate. you know, life is definitely difficult for a lot of Kenyans, right?
More than 50% of the people who are living below the poverty line.
And a quick one, Martin. The media bill is coming up for discussion tomorrow in Parliament.
Yes.
Are we hoping for the best? What are the, you know, the stakeholder conversations, and how have those been?
I hope it takes a good angle, because, you know, in Parliament there we've not been treated so nicely.
Right.
So I want to imagine and believe that the Holy Spirit will come down and ensure a sober discussion and enable the media to be able to be seen in good light, since we've never been seen in good light in Parliament, but we are seen in good light elsewhere. So it's just to pray that the Holy Spirit comes down and
Amen. And that's how we end the show. Thank you very much, Martin Mutua, Louis Atieno. Been such a pleasure hosting you today. And that is the way it is this Monday morning. It's about 19 minutes to 9. Have a very good day ahead. We'll see you again tomorrow. Bye-bye.